Hello, my name is Forrest McLean. I will be the interviewer.
Hi, my name is Towns McLean, and I will be the interviewee, and I have consented to this video.
All right, we'll start off with the first question. What does social justice mean to you?
Social justice is a really interesting topic to me because it has taken these these social constructs that have shaped our society in a lot of ways and has painted them in some positive lights and some pretty negative lights as well.
All right. What emotion does it evoke in you?
Frustration. um, I've seen a lot of social justice warriors, as they're called, or just people fighting for social justice that are fighting oftentimes either in ignorance or are so passionate that it's overwhelming and the average person doesn't want to hear it. So I find it very ineffective and at the end of the day frustrating.
What are your thoughts on recent developments of social justice in the United States?
I think we've made a lot of wonderful strides, especially in equality between the genders. I think it's amazing the privileges that every single American United States citizen has. And the fact that women and men are almost on equal playing levels. I think there's always going to be an uneven what would you say, standing between the two because men and women are so different, and women exceed far past men in some areas, and vice versa, men far exceed women in other areas just because we're both inherently very, very different.
What are two ways that social justice has affected you personally?
Being a white woman in the United States, social justice has only really halfway worked in my favor because I'm a woman. But then when it comes to being white, I feel like there's a pretty negative light that is being shined upon white people. And so I think I would say that regardless of my skin tone, but hey, bias or bias. So I think I've been pretty affected in the sense of my education being looked upon as the peppy white girl who, yes, is smart, but at the end of the day is still the peppy white girl that everyone just loves to have fun with and be around. But I'm not looked at for my brains and what my mind is capable of, and I think that's what a lot of women struggle with.
What in our society do you think calls for social justice?
I don't think it's something that we talk about a lot, but I think social justice is really, really necessary in the areas of human trafficking and the exploitation of the people who can't fight for themselves. So, yes, gender equality is really important, but we've made pretty large strides. So, I'm willing to give it a rest on feminism and not by any means backtrack in that area, but consistently keep everybody equal, but then also strive to help the millions of people who are right under our noses, who do not have the freedoms that you and I do. They can't even choose to use the restroom when they want because they're in bondage, they're in slavery, and I think that is something that we really need to concentrate on in our society.
What in our culture do you think is over exaggerated when it comes to social justice?
I think a lot. I think that mainstream media and the main sources of information are pretty one-sided, and in that I think social justice has been this blown out of proportion topic in a lot of ways when it comes to feminism and things like the wage gap, and the false statistics surrounding a lot of social justice issues. Yes, there's truth in it, but let's just take the wage gap, for instance. I, for one, don't believe it really exists. Let me rephrase that. I believe there is a gap in our wages between men and women, but I think there are very logical reasons for that gap, not because of my gender, but because of the average education, job positions, maternity leave, the average characteristics and choices of my gender have influenced the wage gap in that way. And so, I'm sorry, what was the question? It was...
What in our culture do you think is over-exaggerated when it comes to social justice?
Yes. Just in general, I think things are blown out of proportion when it comes to statistics, and it's not looked at in a very logical manner. It's portrayed with a lot of emotion, and there's more of an emotional pull than anything, and I think that's a really good way to fool a lot of people at the end of the day, because we're humans and most of us are driven by emotions.
Being that you are a woman and seeing how affected our society is by sexual assault, what are your thoughts on the hashtag #MeToo movement?
I think in the beginning, the Me Too movement was a very, very noble thing to stand with and for. But I think once again, we've gotten away from using our rhetoric to push forward truth and logic, and we've gone more towards a very emotionally charged. We've just come to a very emotional place in our society, I feel. And so the Me Too movement has grown into this very emotional, and regardless of the fact that we can't prove something, or regardless of what the accused person is saying, whether male or female, the accuser is in the right automatically. And that's how I have interpreted it. Now you could interpret it completely different. But that's what I've seen, at least, and in the circles and in the social media that I have, that's what I've seen it as.
Obviously racism exists, but do you believe that racism is a major problem in America?
Yes, racism exists, as you said. I think it's a problem. I think it is a problem. But once again, I feel like it's been blown out of proportion. The systematic racism, the claims of that, and just this idea that there is a divide in our society, this gap that no one really wants to fix. That's what a lot of it is put out as, is this race doesn't like that race, and this one won't compromise, therefore that one won't compromise. And it's dividing our society, and it's polarizing us more and more and more. Yes, I believe it's a problem, and I think it's growing not because racism itself is growing. I think it's because the rhetoric surrounding it is becoming more and more polarized. Therefore, it's seeming like a bigger problem than it is, and once again, we've gone away from logic and to the emotional draw and pull of the whole thing. And I think we should honestly love and respect every human being, and no matter what you look like, no matter what race you are, no matter how tall, fat, skinny you are, we should respect one another. And I do see that there are some people who do not feel that way and do not treat others that way, and I acknowledge that, and I do not diminish the just how horrible that is. But I do not believe as a culture and as a whole society that racism is one of our biggest problems.
You kind of answered the last question with your previous answer, but it was, do you think that social justice divides America or unites it? Do you have any more thoughts on that?
In the beginning, I think social justice, in the first wave of feminism, that's just an example, it at first was a dividing thing because it was going against the flow of the culture in that day. But I think social justice has become this thing that everybody jumps on the bandwagon for, and nobody knows really the direction that this bandwagon is going, but everybody's going that way. And I don't think there is an end result to all of the upheaval. I don't think there's really a goal in it. I think it really just causes unnecessary division. And I, to be frank, don't like it. I don't think that social justice and the thing that it has become is a very necessary part in our society. And I think we can honestly do without it.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you.
All right.